Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, rising from the flames, baptized only to burn again. Let me dance in the rhythm of your flame. If I burn, let me die to burn again. If I burn, let me die to burn again. Oh.
Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Herbal Knowledge Keepers with my co-host Dakota Granny Woman and myself, Blue Star Deer Woman. As usual, we have a very knowledgeable show planned for you today, and it's called Plants and Pain Relief, and that extends to everyone we possibly know. I mean, everyone at some point in their life experiences some kind of physical, emotional, mental pain. And what we hope to share with you here and what Dakota brings to us on an ongoing basis is how you can become your best advocate. Mm-hmm. How do you become more medically knowledgeable? And that includes understanding your plants and your herbology, as well as being open to the various perspectives, Eastern and Western thought, mm-hmm. and then, of course, our medical existence as it is now, which I might add at this point, my opinion, is that we always need to keep growing. Mm. And I think one of the things that's happened for us in our medical industry is they've kind of come to a plateau and have gotten kind of complacent. And that's why we have shows like this based on the Herbal Knowledge database. And because it's important now that everyone become responsible for your health. Mm. Ask the questions. Mm-hmm. The doctors aren't the know-it-alls anymore, and we've learned that. You've got to ask questions. You got to do your research. And I might add that this is the same thing that's happening in our government right now. It's no longer the government will take care of me. It's all of us standing up and becoming our own self-governing advocates. We've got to ask the questions, and we've got to know what we, the people, want and need, and have a voice together. Mm-hmm. So as you know, for those who have visited our shows before, or for those that are new, this is based on the herbaldatabase.org. And this is an extensive collected system that Dakota's been working on now going on probably 12 years. Hundreds of thousands of entries of cross-referencing of knowledge and wisdom that she has acquired. She has researched. She has had extensive conversations with professionals and lay people, and she's coordinated this into what we call the Herbal Database. And so please stay with us, and you're welcome to come into the chat room. If you have questions, you're also welcome to call into this show. If you'd like to add your thoughts, join the discussion, or just simply ask us questions. And then also there's a group page, the Herbal Knowledge Keepers. And
on Facebook.
On Facebook, and you can go there. And so That's it for my spiel right now. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Well, we're going to open the database right away today because we've got a lot to cover. And for those who are unfamiliar, this is what it looks like when you first log in. The Herbal database is available to the public on a subscription, an inexpensive, I might add, subscription basis. And I'm going to, as usual, tell you a little bit about what I'm doing as far as getting around in it. But today we've got this huge topic of pain. So I'm going to go into the search box and bring up the main category, which is P-A-I-N, pain. And you notice I didn't click on that search word there. That's nothing. Don't click on it. All of your choices come up above, and you could scroll through to find what you're looking for, but we just want to start with plain old pain. And as Dear Woman was saying, this is something that all of us deal with all of the time, whether it's for ourselves or someone we know. And so we have been told that there really are only just a very few resources available to us to deal with pain. And yes, it's physical and mental and emotional. They're all tied together, and we'll get into that later. At any rate, we're told that we can choose between aspirin, Tylenol, the opioid drugs. And so we're going to start there and take a look at those just to uncover the reasons why they may not be our best choices at all. So what you're looking at here is a color-coded map of the topic of pain. And we'll cover some of these categories later, but right now we're going to look over at the left-hand side. These are other associations with pain. I'm going to pull on this scroll bar that appeared there just to show you there's more to this. And we're going to start right away with going to, whoops, my computer's acting up, going to NSAIDs. Most of us have thought of these kinds of pain medications as being quite safe. After all, aspirin's been around for a long time. The doctors will say take a couple of aspirin, or more commonly these days they'll say take Tylenol, acetaminophen. And in the hospital they're likely to give you Tylenol. If you have even surgery or something that's quite painful there, these are the kinds of pain medications that they like to give us. So we have this idea that they're really safe, and maybe they don't always work, but they're worth a try. So this is the main category here, NSAIDs. I'm going to lift the information panel up. You see these two triangles. If I click on the upward pointing one, the information panel comes up. And so these are links that I could click on here, and another tab would open with an article or a video. And then there's other information beneath. And I just want to go through this. I think it's so important for people to understand what they're subjecting themselves to when they're taking these. So this talks a little bit about how they work. But what isn't well known, and these are from medical studies, what isn't well known is that, and NSAID stands for non-steroidal drugs, okay, non-steroidal.
Okay, good.
And they double the chance of heart failure, number one. You've probably heard that aspirin can cause gastrointestinal bleeding.
Right.
Most people know about that. It turns out that even the low dose aspirin that doctors will recommend to prevent cardiovascular problems, even those low-dose aspirins still produces gastrointestinal bleeding. And they don't prevent cardiovascular problems, and the studies are here in the database to show you that.
What is the element in the aspirin that is the irritant?
Well, it's a synthetic salicylic acid,
Mm-hmm.
and what it's doing is, and we'll get into pain physiology in a little bit, but what it's doing is it's inhibiting prostaglandins that are responsible for blood clotting.
Oh.
And so the clotting factor is taken down.
Okay.
Tylenol and NSAID, I'm just reading through some of this here. It's up on your screen and you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
They destroy the cartilage.
In every part of the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm going to just kind of skip through some of this, but they not only fail to reduce the risk of heart disease, but they increase the risk of heart disease. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you see some studies here about how these harmless painkillers increase the risk of cardiac arrest. They are, I'm just kind of scanning through here. Hearing loss. They increase the risk of hearing loss in men, but also in women and younger individuals.
And so these would be typical pharmaceuticals that you might be given after a surgery.
Yeah.
And so we wonder why, especially more aged folks,
Yeah.
come out of surgery, they go on the pharmaceuticals and they continue to deteriorate.
Yeah. Well, part of it is that, and we're going to go through this in some detail, but
Mm-hmm.
part of it also is that these drugs are blocking some of the healing mechanisms directly that are required. So that's the other part of pain medicine is, we want to take something for pain. You know, when pain's really severe,
Mm-hmm.
some people would rather die than face another day.
Yeah.
And so they'll take anything. And it's understood, you know, there are times when it may be appropriate to give one of these drugs or even an opioid. But you have to be aware of the risks and how plants can offset some of those risks. They're really not to be taken casually every day, you know, when you have a headache or you're taking them regularly because for back pain, and by the way, these don't really work well for back pain anyway. So be aware of what's going on in your body when you're taking these, and there are pros and cons to everything, of course. Look at the risks and look at the alternatives and see if you can do something better. So if you're
Dakota, is NSAIDs, is that the way we would, as a client to a physician, is that the way we would hear it, or is it just the NSAIDs is the umbrella?
That's the umbrella, and we're going to look at them specifically.
Okay, so a doctor's not going to necessarily say, okay, I'm going to prescribe 3 different NSAIDs to you.
No, they use the term all the time, but they may not for a patient.
Okay.
Taking an NSAID in early pregnancy doubles the risk of miscarriage, and we'll get into specifically what Tylenol does to children and women. So it increases the possibility of hemorrhage in age-related macular degeneration. There are problems listed here for what it does to children. And then just a quick overview of some of the alternatives to NSAIDs that take care of pain. And these are all studies. So in the database, if you want to see one of these studies, when you see a blue link like this, don't click on it or it'll take you out of the database. Instead, do a right click and then tell it to open the link in a new tab. So here are just a few of these. Acupuncture, it turns out to be really good for pain. Ginger is a pain reliever. Ginger, in fact, can prevent and even treat a migraine. Oral fennel, that's a fennel extract compares very favorably to these drugs if a woman is having heavy menstrual pain. Vitamin E plus fennel compares with ibuprofen on pain intensity with dysmenorrhea, that's menstrual pain. Nigella, which we love, is very effective topically for um, uh, breast pain. So there are a lot of things here, and when we get into the using of the plants, we will talk more specifically. Did you have a question?
Yes, I do, because I know that one of the issues for years now has been the amount of time that a pharmaceutical takes to numb the pain. Of course, it's not being very healthy for you. And then the amount of time a plant medicine. And I think that should be addressed at some point. I don't know if you plan to do that, but it's like, plant medicine.
Yeah, that's a good question. And they can act very quickly and keep acting. Whereas when we get into the opioids stop acting after a while. There's opioid resistance. So let's go down here and look at some of the specific drugs. One thing about your question there that is worth mentioning is that one of the huge differences about using plants to relieve pain is that you're not only treating the pain itself, but there are a lot of different substances in those plants that are going to work to heal the underlying condition that caused the pain. Right. So pain's going to continue if we don't heal, right? So that's got to be the number one, is what do we need to do to heal this thing?
And that's the difference with plant medicine. It goes to the source where the real repair has to happen, whereas pharmaceuticals, we've always known that it treats the symptoms.
Right.
It's a superficial salve.
Right. And you're going to be wanting to use a combination of herbs depending on what's going on. So you might take one thing for the pain and some other things for whatever the issue is. So here is where you can start looking up the specific kinds of NSAIDs. So you see there, Tylenol, that's a big one. Aspirin, Celebrex, meloxicam, so Aleve. These are big ones. And by clicking on these, you can learn more about them. So let's start with Tylenol, because I know a lot of people take it. Acetaminophen is in about, that's the chemical name for it. The pharmaceutical name is acetaminophen, and that is in a lot of different drugs, not just Tylenol. Tylenol is just a brand name. So when I clicked on that, you'll see a whole bunch of other categories opened up. First of all, up at the top, it's attached to a list of fluorinated drugs. They have fluorine in them, or fluoride. And that's not really great either. Now, underneath, if for some reason you decide after watching the show or going to the database and learning about this, you decide that, well, I'm going to keep taking Tylenol. Or maybe you've gone to the hospital and you're in for surgery, and when you get out, they're going to give you Tylenol. These items beneath are plants and plant substances that help to prevent some of the damage that Tylenol does to your body. Okay, so you're going to want to maybe take grapeseed extract with you to the hospital and take that while you're taking the Tylenol. But let's see what Tylenol does to us.
And just one question. You mentioned, what was it, the acetamin?
I know, that's a mouthful.
Acetaminophen?
Acetaminophen.
Okay. You mentioned something about fluoride being in it.
Yeah.
And I just have to ask, we were told for years that fluoride, was helpful, but now we're finding out we have an excess of fluoride and it's needed to be get rid of.
Right.
So just curious, do you have any information on, are we also now feeding fluoride into our pharmaceuticals to get rid of it?
You mean to get it out of the environment?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Well, you know, that's how it started getting into the water.
Mm,
We had an excess, and so we started using, and this was from manufacturing.
mhm.
And so we started taking, it was a waste product from manufacturing. We
Right.
had to get rid of it. And so this brilliant idea came up that a good way to do it was to put it in the water supply and tell people that it was going to be helpful for their teeth, which turns out not to be the case at
Right.
all.
Right.
So if you want to look up fluoride and learn all about it, here's where you can go. Fluoride,
Okay.
that's about fluoride toxicity.
Good.
Here's about fluoride itself. It's in bottled water. It can cause ADHD. These are some of the things that help remove that or help deal with the toxicity,
Mm.
get it out of the system. These are drugs, poisonous substances that have it in, like these fluoroquinolone drugs. Um, and then here, of course, is where we were, the list of fluorinated drugs.
Mhm.
And you could read more about that.
Okay.
So that's just one little reason why these are not so great.
And this is also, again, I want to point out, this is an example of Dakota was going down a certain path, and she was explaining to us, like, we're back on Tylenol, and you're going through the database, and you have a question. You noted that, wait a minute, that fluoride. And she went off, clicked on fluoride, and we got to explore that. And Dakota will show you at the bottom of the database, there's a breadcrumb. So let's say you got off of Tylenol, you went to fluoride, and maybe we even went to some herbs to heal it. These are little breadcrumbs at the bottom, so you can go backwards.
Yeah.
You can retrieve exactly where you were.
Right.
I just thought that point of clarity is important.
Yeah, that's good.
Using the database.
So let's just see, because so many people, I want to spend a little time on this. So many people use Tylenol. First of all, you want to know always about interactions, whether it's with herbs, foods, vitamins, drugs. You want to know what kind of interactions, and by that, that's not a good term in the way it's used medically. It means that there can be a toxic reaction, some kind of harm done. So let's say you're taking Tylenol or another form of acetaminophen and vitamin C. That seems like it should be okay, right?
Yeah. Right.
Well, that, and especially if you're taking a lot of it, that can cause more of the acetaminophen to build up in the serum of your blood. And that could cause the drug to accumulate to levels that damage the liver. You might be taking echinacea, and that can damage the liver and the kidneys. Or maybe with kava, same thing, liver, kidney damage. And if you're taking it with ginkgo, you increase the risk of bleeding. So let's see here. What do we want to go through? Oh, pregnant women. This is really important. When women are pregnant, the doctors will often say that they should be taking only acetaminophen for pain. And, they'll call it, let's just call it Tylenol for easy pronunciation.
Okay.
More than half of all pregnant women in the United States use Tylenol. But there was an important study that raised concern over the risk to children whose mothers were using Tylenol while they were pregnant. And it's not a small study. Over almost 8,000 mothers were examined about using Tylenol at 18 and 32 weeks of pregnancy. And then they followed up with them, and they discovered that the children that resulted from these pregnancies, 30, well, I'm not going to read all the details, but they had a greater chance of suffering from emotional problems. And 46% increase in total difficulties. Behavioral problems are associated with children born to mothers we're taking Tylenol. And part of it, as you'll go through this, you'll discover that one of the things Tylenol does is it inhibits the ability in a person to feel empathy. And so
Wow.
it may be they're developing that from the get-go because of the Tylenol. That part of the brain isn't developing.
That's amazing. Okay. And I remember from the last time we did episode 11, I believe, it had occurred to us, Dakota, that now as we're becoming more knowledgeable about herbs, right? And what you're pointing out here is know your pharmaceuticals as we start to cross over and take more plant medicine, that you have to become knowledgeable of the dangers, which is what you're pointing out.
Yeah.
And remember, we brought up the terminology of reverse engineering, that in essence, what we're doing with medical technology is we're reverse engineering. We're studying the technology of the medical platform, and we're reorganizing, reinvestigating. And so we've only been to a place where maybe we did chamomile tea, real lightweight teas, right? Or Ayurvedics. But now, remember, we're getting more advanced in plant medicine. So it's your responsibility to know, just like what we're looking at. If you're going to cross over and do a Tylenol, then just that list that Dakota just pointed out, we have to be very watchful of the mixture. Like you have to become a chemist as well.
You or just use the database. I mean, you could save
Plain
yourself.
And simple.
You save yourself a lot of time with this.
Okay.
That's part of why I did it. It's like you just come here and quickly, boom, 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 see everything. Good. And just be responsible to at least do that. You know. So these are more studies just to show you that autism can be associated with Tylenol in children, especially after the MMR vaccine. You can have a twofold risk of, if you're taking this regularly, you double your chances of developing blood cancer, certain stem cells are damaged. Let's see. Ginger protects against liver injury, but we'll see something else. Well, we might see something else about ginger later. We'll see. These are some of the things that protect you. So alpha lipoic acid, which comes from potatoes, as a supplement can protect your liver and kidney. So if for some reason you still want to take it, be taking alpha lipoic acid, go in the database, find out what that does. It can increase the possibility of dying from the flu. And here's some more curcumin, helps protect against some of the damage. Same with fermented ginseng.
Well, what you just said too, it's really typical to think about Tylenol when you have flu symptoms.
Yeah. So these are just more substances that help protect you if you are taking it. And I'm going to drop this down now, and you'll see they're listed under here. This epigallocatechin is in green tea. So if you're a green tea drinker, that would be helpful. By the way, these purple colors refer to phytochemicals in plants. So if you see, for example, sesamol, that I could be doing, but what in the heck is that? You'll see here it's from sesame seed. Okay. And of course you can learn about all the different things that it does that are good for you. And this is where all of this comes into play of going, well, while I'm relieving my pain, what can I be doing that is going to help heal this condition? So that's really what we want to do. Now let's just go, we're not going to go through all of these, but just aspirin is another one that's so common. And something interesting about aspirin is that it inhibits the body's ability to make antibodies. So when you're sick and you need antibodies to fight off an infection, and you're taking aspirin, you're defeating yourself because your immune system isn't going to be functioning as well. You'll see here studies that show that the regular aspirin use doesn't even protect you against cardiovascular disease. 28% of people who take low-dose aspirin to prevent heart disease develop an ulcer. Now that's a low dose, right? It increases your risk of a hemorrhagic stroke. These are all studies of all kinds of horrible things that aspirin does. Let's see, let me pick out one or two more. Well, a lot of risk for bleeding. We already know that, but let's find something really interesting.
I'm looking at the bronchoconstriction with aspirin.
Okay, what does that say?
Bronchoconstriction in asthmatics following the exposure to aspirin or other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs has been observed and labeled as aspirin exacerbated respiratory disease.
Right, ARO, and so, or I don't know how you pronounce that. AIRD.
Yeah, AIRD.
It's its own disease, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's find one more and then we'll move on. Well, let's see. Blood on the intestines. One more. Tell me to stop if you see one.
Okay, yeah. Go a little bit slower.
Oh, okay. Here's one. The administration of, this is an animal study, but still, plutonium-238, really bad stuff we don't want in our bodies. And we are exposed to it. And
where does that exposure, how are we exposed to plutonium?
Through radiation releases, and you know, it's in like nuclear fuel.
Okay.
If there's plutonium is used in certain, like MOX fuel rods in certain nuclear energy plants, like in Fukushima, the ones that blew up were MOX that had plutonium, and it's circulating through the environment.
Right.
So aspirin increases the retention of that.
Interesting. It's almost
the
like
skeleton.
It's an attractor. Is it an attractor? Or
I don't know if it attracts. It just causes us to hold it in the skeleton longer.
Wow.
So there's just a lot here. All right. So, guys, if you want to take aspirin once in a while, you know, it's probably okay. But regular use is not a good idea.
Well, now, you know, my understanding is always the willow bark. I still make tinctures of willow bark is organic aspirin,
and we're going to go
get
into
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now here you see aspirin is a platelet inhibitor. That's why it can cause bleeding problems. These are some other conditions that are associated with taking aspirin. Salicylic acid is the phytochemical that originally it came from. It's like a synthetic form of that. But it can lead to hearing loss. If you have tinnitus or vertigo, that can be from aspirin. So let's go back now to, in fact, I'm just going to use the search box because I want to look at the opioids. Because this is the other big category of pain relieving drugs, right?
Right. Now, this is where we have problems with our youth. We're having opioids, an overabundance of it.
And not just the youth. Now, what they call accidental death from taking opioid drugs is now the leading cause of accidental death over and above car accidents.
Oh.
And so what's happened as a result of this is actually kind of good, because the medical community is really worried about opioid addiction and death from it. And so there's an organization that
because opioids is a common prescription medicine, right, for severe pain.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Um,
But it's,
and
yeah.
yeah, it is. And here, we'll go to the opioid drugs in a second and show you
Okay.
those. But so the hospitals are really worried about it, and there's an organization, I don't remember the name, but it has something to do with ratings of hospitals. You know, it's kind of like a governing body of hospitals here that its own organization, and it sent out, I guess, a policy report or something to the hospital saying that they have got to do something about this, and what they want them to do is to start using more alternative medicine. They want them to start looking into CAM, into using herbal medicine, into using electroacupuncture, anything except these drugs. And so now the doctors are going to have to learn about pain relief with plants and all of these other things we're going to go through today, because the hospitals are being required to give patients something that is not Tylenol and is not these opioid drugs. So what I want to point out here under opioids real quickly, though, is that we have endogenous opioids. Those are the ones our body makes. All of these are made in our body, and that's our own natural pain relief that we can, when we get into pain physiology, we produce these to modulate our own pain. And so
you would think that plants that enhance those
yeah,
to be more active is how we would alleviate pain.
Yeah, and the receptors, like let's go to endorphins. So these are two things that, like drumming, increases endorphins. There's not just plants in here, you know, because when you're studying herbalism and plant medicine, you pretty much have to know everything, that because it's not always plants that you are the best thing. So beta endorphin is like one of our main endogenous pain relievers, and so here are some things. Eleuthero, which is used to be called Siberian ginseng, it increases the beta endorphins. I'm still going through the database to find things that specifically do this. Omega-3s, fatty acids, also increase the beta endorphins. Just doing yoga, lifestyle stuff.
Right. And then endorphins, I always think of like the popular pharmaceutical is dopamine.
That is right? Not really, that's technically not an endorphin. It's a neurotransmitter for happiness. And but happiness, as you'll see, does tie into pain. If you're not happy, the pain is worse. So let's go to the opioid drugs. And these, do you recognize any of these?
Oh, yeah. Morphine, analgesic.
Fentanyl.
Oh, yeah, there we go. The fentanyl.
100 times more powerful than morphine.
Wow. I mean, you know, I know about it because of friends that are in chronic pain and have recognized their addiction to that and found that that was the one drug they had to get themselves off of so they can have some clarity of thinking.
Right. And so here's information on withdrawal from that. If you have been taking it and you discover you're addicted, these different substances will help. I don't know if I have, here's some information about withdrawal articles and stuff, but these will help you. But we're not going to dwell on that too much right now. But what I want to say about the opioid drugs, there are studies in here, of course, about these that tell you more. But the main thing is that they don't work for a type of pain called neuropathic pain. That's where there's actual nerve injury. They work for other types of pain. But they also build up in the system, and you develop a kind of a resistance to them. So you have to take more and more and more. And eventually you're and they're doing damage. You're on really high doses, and as you're taking more, this it's called hyperalgesia. Hyperalgesia is getting worse and worse and worse. So, what is hyperalgesia?
Well, this is interesting, Dakota, because you're saying that they are prescribing these opioid drugs for nerve damage, and you're saying it does not even in fact.
No, it's not good for, it doesn't work well for nerve damage.
I want to pause for a moment because that's a big thing that's going on in our medical. This is a serious prescription.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? They're just really knocking out the brain or the clarity to have the wherewithal that like you have pain?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like it distances you from it. I'll give you an example of what I experienced. I had a very severe spinal injury called cauda equina that is off the charts type of pain. And of course, this is when I was living way back in the backwoods without any access to any kind of medical care.
Right.
So my dear friends who had oxycodone on them showed up and said, here, take this. I had never taken oxycodone. I didn't know.
Right.
And so, but, you know, like I said, when you're in that kind of pain, you'll take anything.
Yeah, sure.
And so I took it, and it made me feel kind of dreamy and far away, but it didn't even touch the pain.
Didn't touch the pain.
The pain was still there 100%.
So basically, okay, this is really an important point because maybe this is why we are starting to embrace the psychotropics and the hallucinogenics. I mean, if we're just distracting the mind, your awareness from the pain, right? So you're not healing any of the origin of the issue, and you're not even alleviating the pain of the symptom, right?
Yeah.
Well, then it makes perfect sense. Why not be on medicinal mushrooms, or why not, what's that popular one? Ketamine.
Yeah.
They're having incredible results from ketamine.
Yeah, yeah.
So why not have a more beneficial?
Right. Well, you know, like I said, the hospitals and doctors are waking up now.
Yeah.
You know, it was a good idea back when it came from poppies.
Yeah.
You know, heroin is not that great of an idea, but the poppy here in Arkansas, all the settlers had dried poppy resin in a bag hanging on the wall for when there was a gunshot wound or whatever, and it was used.
Right.
And
even the marijuana.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was used, but it's not the answer. We know that now. Right. You can see in this section some of the damage done from that. So let me, I want to check the time. Okay, so oxycodone, that's one that's really very addictive, that can cause chronic pain states. Basically, what you wind up doing is getting used to the drug and creating a chronic pain state that, you know, is miserable. And so anyway, let's move on now.
And oxycodone, that's a popular misuse drug on the streets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you really don't need, and I should emphasize that, you don't need any of these. So let's go now to, I want to talk a little bit about pain physiology. What's going on with pain? All right. So if you come in here and you really want to learn about this, and I suggest that people do learn some of the basics so that you know why you're taking something and can make the best choice for whatever's going on. This is a great lecture that goes through all of pain physiology here, how it all works. But here we see different pathways and chemicals that are involved with the production of pain in our body. And just to kind of briefly go through these, there's something called cyclooxygenase. And so this article tells you a little bit about it, but it's a chemical enzyme that produces prostaglandins and two things that a lot of folks will be familiar with called COX-1 and COX-2. So the drugs like Tylenol and aspirin, a lot of drugs, this is what they are trying to shut down because these things cause pain, okay? COX-1 is cyclooxygenase 1, COX-2 is cyclooxygenase 2. And so most, like aspirin, shuts down both of these. And what happens when COX-1 is shut down, that's what's also used. See, it's always a double-edged sword. COX-1 is also what's used for clotting, blood clotting, and so you get the bleeding disorders if you inhibit that one. Right? Huh. And so what they did was they thought, well, you know, COX-2 doesn't do that. COX-2 is the one we should aim for. It's also involved in creating in pain and inflammation. So let's just make drugs that shut down COX-2 and leave that one alone. And it sounded like a great idea. But once they got going with a few of those drugs, they realized what was happening was now people are having heart attacks. And so just having COX-2 puts you at risk for heart failure, heart attacks, that sort of thing. So
if you shut it down.
Yeah, shutting it down with these drugs.
And I'm sorry, Dakota, tell me again, what's the genre? What is a COX-2? What's the word? Is it?
It's both of them are two forms of this cyclooxygenase.
And a
that's an enzyme.
An enzyme.
Enzymes usually end in ACE, ASE.
Okay, that's what I wanted to track. So yeah. That's an enzyme, and this is breaking down the enzyme.
No, these are the enzymes are used in to make chemical reactions happen. They're complicated. So this enzyme is making different kinds of chemicals that are functional in the body.
Okay.
The starting one, you know, it's interesting and it's something we don't really want to get into too much in this show, but the main one that it forms is called prostanoid, which is a protein, and that is then turned into the prostaglandins, which are what aspirin shuts down. Mm-hmm. You know, prostaglandins, we need them, but they're also involved in pain. And we need pain because it's telling us there's something wrong, right?
Right.
So it's not a bad thing. It's just too much of it. Thromboxane is for blood clotting. What?
So when we're talking about enzymes, is this in the category of chemistry?
Or biochemistry?
Biochemistry. Yeah. I just wanted to get a frame of reference for it.
Yeah. And so you could go, let's see if we go to cyclooxygenase, it's probably connected to enzymes. You see it's connected. If you want to learn about enzymes, the human enzymes, go here.
Okay.
And I have it connected to the pain physiology too.
And that's how we got here.
Yeah.
Because we were looking at pain physiology, and so it's taking us to the enzymes, and you're showing us the map.
Yeah. All right. And you see over here how the NSAIDs are directed against the cyclooxygenase. That's what it is trying to knock out, different forms of that.
Okay, good.
And then inflammation is what this causes, inflammation and pain. So to bring down the inflammation, you know.
Then we have to go into looking at, now that's what brought us to the COX-1 and COX-2.
Yeah. And so that's what those are. You'll hear about them I wish my Facebook things would come up in this show. So you can come here and, the Herbal Knowledge Keepers are busy. Those are all, they may be watching the show right now.
I wonder if they're having a conversation about the show. I'll go check it out while we're talking.
Those are messages from our Facebook group, Herbal Knowledge Keepers. Definitely, if you're on Facebook, join us there because we can keep this conversation going. 2 hours is not enough, as you're going to see, to cover this topic. And I always discover I left important stuff out. Of course, if you're in the database, then you can just come here yourself.
Oh, they're saying, well, this is good for our producer to hear. They're saying in Facebook they're not being able to log on.
Oh, okay.
Can't seem to log on. Okay, so let's see. What can we tell them?
Well, you take care of that one,
All
and I'll
right.
just keep talking.
Maybe what I'm going to do is invite Biggie over to the Facebook page.
Okay. All right. That's too bad. Anyway, this is going to be available in the archive, although I would love for them to be able to be chatting with us. But we'll pick up the chat in the group. So anyway, where was I? And here's another one. That's you.
What? Oh,
Your
yeah, because I
comment
just sent it.
popped up.
Yeah, I'm going to get the link and send it to
Okay.
Biggie.
All right, we were on pain physiology, so I'm just going to keep talking, you guys, because I know maybe some people have gotten in. All right, so there are certain chemicals, messengers called cytokines that are involved in a lot of the immune response to things and inflammation, which is a good thing up to a point. Interleukin-6 is one of them, and so some drugs and plants will aim to kind of tone that down if it's gotten to be too much of a problem. But you can learn about it there. Learn about the inflammatory pathways. Now, neuropathic pain. This neuropathic pain is the one that you want to look for with injuries like arachnoiditis or cauda equina. Or this is pain where the nerves themselves are actually damaged, and it's different from nociceptive pain. So let me go to nociceptive. Our regular, everyday, ordinary pain is from something called nociception, and I want to just talk about that and how that works. So we have these sensory nerves, right, going through the body, and they're specialized sensory nerves called nociceptors. They're out there to detect anything going wrong in the body and send a pain signal up through the spinal cord into the brain where it can be registered and something can be done about it. And so the kind of pain that we feel when it's running through the body, through those nerves into the spinal cord and brain is called nociceptive pain. And so those nociceptors pick up things like problems with something being too hot or too cold. They pick up chemical signals from the immune system, for example, where these inflammation chemicals are coming in. They are also sensitive to touch. And so like if a nail goes through your foot, they're going to pick that up. And they're made up of two different kind of fibers. One of the fibers, the alpha fiber, is super fast. It shoots a signal up to the brain through the spinal cord at a rate of 10 meters a second. And so that's your first signal that just says stop. It's a real sharp pain. And then it's taken over by this other fiber that's slower. And that first signal is real localized. It tells you exactly what got hurt. The second fiber, the C fiber, travels about maybe a meter a second. It shows up later and it's more generalized and it spreads over a larger part of the body and it's more of an aching kind of a signal. And so I don't know if you've ever had something happen where you have an injury and you notice that the pain the next day, even or a few hours later, is really spreading to parts of the body that weren't even injured. And so that's how that happens. So the cells are sending out all these chemical messengers, and cell to cell to cell passes that information along. The nerve fibers pick it up, pass the information up the spinal cord. So there's some places where we can interact with this kind of pain effectively. And one of them is at the very tip of that nerve, the nociceptive nerve, there's a receptor that's called the capsaicin receptor. That is, they named it for that because of cayenne pepper. And it turns out they discovered from the Aztecs the use of cayenne peppers, the pulp from the hot chili peppers, for things like nerve pain, for all kinds of pain. And when they were researching it, they found that, and that does also treat neuropathic pain. They found out that the that particular receptor on the end of the nerve is deadened by the use of cayenne pepper. So cayenne is one of our big anti-nociceptive herbs. I'm going to click on anti-nociceptive. So these substances, and I'm going to lower that screen so you can look at them. These plants work on that kind of everyday nerve pain, either directly on the receptor itself or the way it's being signaled as it goes through the spinal column up into the brain. And you see we've got a lot of them. So certain essential oils, for example, rosemary essential oil is very good against this kind of pain. Here's capsaicin from cayenne peppers. We've got some supplements that work against it. There's your cannabis. And one of the ones that I want to talk about, I'm looking at the time. Okay, I want to jump right into an example of a powerful herb. You were asking about something that's perhaps equivalent to the opioid drugs or any of these really heavy hitters. Well, Corydalis is one of those, and it works on the opioid receptors, just like opium and heroin and all those do, but without causing any of the negative side effects. I'm going to stop for a second. Are you getting anywhere?
Okay. What we need is for you to accept Biggie in the Herbal Knowledge Keepers group, so he can get in there. But I think I've posted the correct link. But he should be in that group anyway.
Well, okay, guys, you're going to get to see this Facebook group now.
Yeah.
And you should anyway, because
I'm not sure if I can invite a member into that
you
group.
can invite them, but I have to accept them.
Oh, okay. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So we're going into Facebook, and you're going to see that we have an active group here to talk about all of these subjects.
Right.
And now I need to go to Herbal Knowledge Keepers. Joan, you should be listening to this show.
And also for the listeners, we are getting the confirmation that I did put the correct link in there. Dakota, apparently the link you had in the page wasn't the correct one.
Okay.
So I'm hoping those members are tuning in now.
Okay.
But go ahead and accept Biggie so he can be on the backup.
Okay. There's Biggie. Okay, he's in now.
All right. So we'll see anyone who's, and I had responded to each of them.
Okay, good.
And I think one of our viewers has gotten the information, so she's got the correct one.
Okay, good. All right, so hopefully these folks won't have any more issues. Anyway, I want to talk about this particular herb. It comes from Chinese herbalism, Corydalis yanhusu. Well, I don't know how you pronounce the Chinese word. Yanhusu, something like that. Anyway, Corydalis is comparable to using an opioid drug. Very quick. And I want to just share a story with you. I knew of a woman who was in the last stage of cancer on heavy morphine drugs. And basically she only had weeks to live, and they just were pumping up the morphine. And her daughter, who knew about the use of herbal medicine, wanted to get her off the morphine, and of course wanted to help her heal, because even at that late stage, people can recover. And so that was her mission, and she went with that in mind. And in very short time, got her mother on to the Corydallis. And I think it was like a week she was off of all of the opioid drugs completely.
Whoa.
And not in any pain. And so here's a study right here.
And just for clarity, what did you mean she was in the final stages?
There's four stages of cancer.
Okay.
Fourth stage is like goodbye.
That's it.
And there's really, they just send you into palliative care. There's nothing they can do for you.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And
then she was, so at that point she'd feel, well, get off the drugs.
The daughter got her off those drugs with the use of Corydallis. So we see here it's being researched and had shown positive results as being an alternative to these opioid drugs. And one of the big things, it directly talks to the opioid receptors in the brain and the spinal cord, which is what our body uses to turn off pain, right? And so it does that. But unlike the opioid drugs, it does not cause this hyperalgesia, this process of the centralization of the pain, so that basically the nervous system is plastic, and it will alter and change and morph. If the nervous system thinks there's something wrong and you're not getting the pain message, we know because of the drug, it will just keep upping the volume of the message. And you've got this battle going on when the nervous system is trying to get the message something's wrong. You keep trying to knock it down, and it keeps coming back. And that's why you have to have stronger and stronger doses of these drugs to keep knocking it down.
Wow. So,
and it gets, go ahead.
All right, just pause for a moment. If the spinal nerve is the communicator, it's saying the pain, I've got pain, then what is it? Is it communicating to our brain? I want you to do something, or alerting all the...
Okay, going back to the physiology real quickly, we were talking about the nociceptor, which is in, the nociceptor goes from our skin, our organs, our muscles, and moves into a certain part of the spinal cord. It's like different levels of the spinal cord have these sensory nerves coming into them. And so the sensory nerve comes in, and the body of that nerve is inside the spinal cord in a place called the dorsal horn, where it's like a little factory of all kinds of things going on, where it can increase the pain if it thinks it needs to. It can amp up the volume, or it can tone it down right there in the spinal cord. But before that happens, that nerve pain then travels up straight through the spine into the thalamus of the brain, and that part of the brain starts making plans of what needs to happen. And from there, it gets moved to different parts of the brain depending on what the thalamus thinks should happen. So it'll get sent to the part of the brain that maps out what part of the body is this pain in. We don't actually feel pain in the body at all. We feel it in the brain. So that message, that signal gets sent to, it's like called the homunculus. There's an actual map of every part of our body inside the brain along this part of the cerebral cortex.
So it could look like a database.
Yeah.
You could really have a database of a brain.
It is like that. But
okay.
You go, it goes, oh, that was in the foot. And so the thalamus shoots the signal to the foot. Okay. So then the foot is now, from that point, sending the message of experience of pain. And so then it's like it also travels around to other parts of the brain, because decisions are being made. And at a certain point, if it's decided, this pain isn't really that much of a threat, let's tone it down because it's in the way of what we need to do. then there's another pathway that moves down from the brain, down the spinal cord, back to that original place where that nerve came in on the dorsal horn. And there are opioid receptors there too. So it'll travel down, and it'll turn on the opioid receptors with those different kinds of endogenous opioids, and it'll cut the pain off. So a lot of it, and what they're understanding now with chronic pain is, and chronic pain is being thought of or described as when there's no excuse for the pain anymore because everything's healed. It's because the nervous system, this part of the nervous system has, you might say, gotten frozen into this map of extreme pain, and it's just stuck there. And so even though everything's totally healed,
Right.
you can still have pain sensations. And so there are therapies that have been developed to get into the brain. Our emotions have a lot to do with how, because those pain pathways travel parallel to our emotional pathways.
So that's where the tendency is to maybe label it psychosomatic, or it's in your mind.
Yeah, it can be.
Because they just can't understand. Well, how could the nervous system freeze and not know that the body is healed?
Right.
So it's almost like I always go to the electrical stimulus, it's like it needs a reset. It's
Right.
almost like, what you do with your heart, you go give shock to the heart. It's almost like shock to the nervous system might be more appropriate.
Well, what they do now, there are places that like special pain centers where they're pretty advanced. And Stanford is, in fact, is probably where a lot of the leading research is happening with this. But they always combine, in chronic pain, they always combine psychotherapy, and it's special kinds like mindfulness. They're teaching mindfulness, stress reduction to people, because it literally is needed to have an effect on this I'm just calling it's a hypersensitization of the nervous system, because it's also tapped into the amygdala. It goes into the limbic system, and there's a physiological reason why the emotions and the way we're thinking about the pain influences what this pain signaling is doing. So one of the interesting things, there's something they call catastrophizing. When somebody has, let's say, a legitimate reason for their pain, they're in a car accident or they, whatever, and it needs to heal. If the person is dwelling all of the time on the pain, that's called catastrophizing. And they have found that people who do that, it's just purely a mental thing. They tend to get over it. It turns into this chronic pain thing where even when the tissue's healed, now this person is stuck in this kind of pain. So catastrophizing is something they watch for. And if you want to help somebody, if you notice they're thinking about some kind of pain all the time.
So how might catastrophizing look in our physiology, or like what you said, like in our spinal nervous system? What would it look like there?
What's going on with that?
Yeah, like if you've now mentally created this message.
Yeah. Well,
is it the brain then or the brain giving the message that we're in pain, we're in pain, we're in pain?
And yes, a lot of it's in the limbic system and in the amygdala, because the amygdala is fairly primitive, and it's designed to give us permanent red flags if we encounter something dangerous. We only want to have to learn that lesson, like putting your hand on the hot stove one time.
Right.
And so the amygdala is like a place where you put your hand on the hot stove, the amygdala gets it right away. And then from then on, anytime you start to put your hand on the hot stove, the amygdala fires off and goes, no.
All right.
And you may not even be conscious of it. So the amygdala's got this wonderful role, protective role, where it's constantly in surveillance of the environment and, you know, getting down what you can and cannot do. But it's also in conversation with the higher brain centers there too. And so it gets information from there as well, saying, you know, whatever we're thinking about, if we're thinking about something that's really, really dangerous, that's being fed back into this amygdala as well. So it's learning from
so
internal and external environments all the time. That's just one way.
Okay, so you're inputting the database.
Yeah, you're feeding into your brain
amygdala.
that this is really, 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 really bad, and it's going to get worse. And so there's these like neuropeptides also that are carrying these messages through the body,
right,
and telling the cells and everything what we've decided in the executive function of the brain about a situation. These neuropeptides are messengers that can go all through the body, and they will tell the body things about what the brain has decided. So in your mind, in your brain, if you've decided, man, this pain isn't going to go away, you know, it's going to kill me, it's like I can't do this, I can't do that, that is creating this kind of really intransigent chronic pain that you're stuck with.
So that's why things like neuroscience and affirmations,
those thinking about
it's like, right, changing your thought processes affect the brain and therefore affect the rest of our health and body.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so all of it ties together in a beautiful way with pain. And we have emotional pain.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, there's women's pain. Women deal with pain. In fact, well, I just wanted you to notice under hyperalgesia, this is where you become overly sensitized to pain. It doesn't take much to set the trigger off. And you'll notice again, the Coriolis is there. It will help with that. Also by called skullcap and black raspberry, either Western or. So there's a number of things, but I want to show you, let's see, what were we talking about?
We're talking about the messages we're giving the brain. You were going to women.
Yeah, I think I have something in here under women's pain. If not, I soon will. Well, let's see, it might be under gender medicine. Because now we're realizing there are some pretty important differences between men and women in our physiology. And women don't respond as well to opioid drugs as men do. And that's because, let's see if we have, here we go. Pain management in women. So you see there are a lot of different ways to get around in here and find things.
Right, and there's different chemistries in the estrogen and then progesterone, right? Or testosterone in the different genders.
But the thing here is that our brains are different. Women, there's something called a microglial cell, which is kind of an immune system type cell that's in the brain that's constantly looking around for trouble to fix. And women have a different, I don't know if it's more of them or they're more active or what, but because of that, the opioid receptors in the brain aren't as responsive to the opioid drugs. And it's because of this microglial cells in the brain, see? And so knowing that, explains why some women are not going to get the right response, and if they just take more and more opioid drugs, they're hurting themselves. So there's another type of pain I want to bring up, aloe, and then we need to move on to the herbs more. Allodynia. Okay, this is similar to hyperalgesia. This is where something like your nervous system has re, reformed itself in such a way that it's so sensitive that if somebody touches your arm with a feather, it feels like a blowtorch.
Okay, yeah, and I've got someone in my life right now that has that experience.
So now let's just get into the pain relieving herbs because we're going to run out of time.
Oh, we'll never run out of time. We'll just do more
We'll do this.
videos.
Okay,
and
we're going to keep this conversation going
right.
on our Facebook page, and we're going to do more and more videos on this. You know, we're free to do as many videos as we want, right?
Exactly. And if you have any tidbits you didn't get to finish up, we'll just do a little snippet.
Okay. So here you've got your different types of pain, self-hypnosis, cayenne, how to make a cayenne poultice, ginger green tea poultice. These are preparations. But I want to go to, and these are all different kinds of pain, okay? So there are specific things that you can use depending on the type of pain. And see, I don't think I see a scroll bar. We might have it all there. Yeah, okay. So let's see. I want to go to, we have something in herbalism called actions or properties. And the action or property for relieving pain is called an analgesic herb or an anodyne herb. This is a real general term. These relieve pain in many, many different ways, and it's a real broad category. So, and in a way, anything that heals you, you could say is analgesic, right? Because it's taking care of the situation. So this is a broad term, but all of these things help with pain in some way.
Okay, so this in your database, this is a good place. Like, let's say you're in pain and you happen to have a garden of beets. You might look up, you might go to beets, or you might go to this site and see if beets is there, and follow the trail and find out.
Right.
I mean, like you have olives here. All right, for instance, you might go to this site and go, okay, I've got 3 jars of olives. How will this help me?
Right, exactly. Now we break down this general heading of analgesic into different kinds of actions, like how is it working? For example, if you've got muscle spasms, you've got pain from muscle spasms, we'll go here to the antispasmodic herbs. These are all of the things that will help deal with muscle spasms, okay? And so you see we've got essential oils. These are the ones that are especially effective. This red color, these are strong herbs you have to be careful with. Mostly you just don't take them over a long period of time. Watch the dose. Hemp seed oil, that's a phytochemical. The blue are also edible plants. And so we've got, for women's pain, you know, often women will go to black cohosh. Black cohosh is good for a lot of different kinds of pain, especially muscle pain. Cramp bark and black haw are really good for women's ovarian cramping type pain. We've got a scroll bar down here, so we see there's more. All of these herbs are going to help in some way with spasms, all right? So let's go back. And now you see up here abdominal pain and bloating. That's just an example. If you went to that, you would see the antispasmodic and go there. In the Chinese medicine, you know, using the energetics. Oh, I'm glad that came up. Energetics, very important. You need to always be balancing the body's energetics with the plant. So for example, if the body has a dry tissue state, and you can learn about that here too, you do not use a drying herb or you're going to get into trouble. You use a moistening herb. So you're going to look for antispasmodics. Let's say you've got a dry tissue state. You need an antispasmodic. You'll go through these and find ones that are either neutral or moistening. But if they're dry, you're not going to use that one.
So you mean like
Or
a dry cough? Is that what you're
no,
saying?
like let's say somebody's they haven't been drinking enough water.
Okay.
They're a little dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
Don't and they're having spasms, which could happen if you're really dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
Like heat exhaustion, that sort of thing. Don't use drying herb. You could, however, if you combined it with a moistening herb. So, for example, um, uh, licorice and turmeric. Licorice is moistening. Turmeric is drying. You combine them together, and you got a neutral, and it's okay to use. Okay, so now let's go to another connective tissue tonics. Let's say you've got a problem with your connective tissue. You've been injured. Your connective tissue has to heal. Come here, and these are all herbs that will help heal your connective tissue, okay? And you may discover that they are also listed as analgesics and anodyne. Up here, you've got another heading, connective tissue degeneration. You could learn about that whole situation there more if you want to learn about what's going on. So let's see what time it is. We're still doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you might go to the draining diuretics. Let's say you've got a situation where you've got edema. There's a lot of swelling, and that can be very painful, and you need to get bring that swelling down. And so we use draining diuretics for that. And for example, stinging nettle is a good one. And it also has a direct action on nociceptive pain. It's a pain reliever. So that would be a good choice. So you can choose among these. Celery seed, really great for hypertension. So kind of look at what is going on with your body and choose things that can heal that condition while getting rid of the pain, okay? Hypnotics and sedatives. Let's say somebody is really agitated. They can't sleep. They can't rest. And you got to be able to rest. These are pain relieving herbs that help you rest. Now, you see Corydalis again here. I do want to mention there are two species of Corydalis that are being used. Let's go to the genus here. This is the Corydalis genus. And this one is Corydalis ambigua. This one is Corydalis ian, and that's the one I can't pronounce, ian husuo. And this is the Chinese one that may be more effective. I can't say for sure. But this is the one that I think a lot of the studies have been done on. Remember, this is for like advanced cancer pain. I'm just going to click on that. Advanced cancer pain. You see some different things here. This other Corydalis may be equally effective. I don't know, and it may be the one that you find available in an herb shop, but check to see if you're buying it, which one you are getting, whether it's this one or the Chinese version. Remember to look at cautions. So let's go back. Let me go down to my rabbit trail. And we're going to go back to the hypnotics.
Wow, that's the sensation I've been starting to feel, kind of this hypnotic trance. It's like I'm starting to like fade in this zone.
Oh, yes.
Come on, you bring up your broadcaster voice and
okay,
wake me up here.
All right. Yeah, I do start to kind of drift myself into the hypnosis of the database.
Yeah, I kind of got that. It's like, okay, snap out of it.
Jamaica dogwood, powerful pain reliever. Let's just look at some of the things that it does. It's you okay, so antispasmodic and hypnotic sedative. So let's say you've got spasms, bad back spasms. Oh my God, low back pain is very common. It's spasming. You need to sleep. And you also have pulmonary tuberculosis and whooping cough.
Yeah, let's pile it on here.
Anyway, it takes care of all of those. It's very powerful. So this is how you can kind of drill down to choose which one of these do I need.
Does that one have a picture of the Jamaica dogwood?
I don't know.
You haven't brought up any pictures today.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted the viewers to see
I'll
that.
throw fennel seed.
Oh,
in
there we
for
go.
you. And we've got black cohosh.
You see where Dakota's clicking on the left there. Some of these, most of them have images.
Sometimes the images are inside the info panel. Lobelia. Oh, Lobelia is magnificent. This one, let's pull Lobelia up just to get a little bit more of a look at it. And so Lobelia for addiction withdrawal. Let's say that you got hooked on those opioid drugs. You can use it for that. Let's see, and we've got a scroll bar up here. I'm going to pull this through. Great for pain. I'm going to look, benzodiazepine withdrawal. It's an antispasmodic, good for angina.
Is that is that the one that's in Benadryl or something like that?
I don't think it's in Benadryl.
It's not necessarily an antihistamine.
No, it's a pain. It's a very strong, I think it's a very strong drug.
Okay.
I think it's opioid related, as I recall. So it's a bronchodilator, helps with circulation. So this can be healing a lot. It stops convulsions. Look at all the things it can be treating while helping you with spasms and pain. I'm looking for more of the, look at all this.
Yeah,
muscle pain. Okay, so let's go to muscle pain. We can go specifically. You've got pain in your muscles, so let's look at some of the stuff that helps with that. Here are a bunch of ointments, liniments. I want to tell you about lobelia and muscle pain. In class, we made a liniment with lobelia. And one of the students has a daughter that works at Tyson's doing repetitive work with her one arm and shoulder for hours and hours and hours. And it got to where she could not lift her arm. Her shoulder was frozen and in serious pain. Well, we had just made this liniment and all the students took some home to try out. So it was there and she gave it to her daughter to put on. The daughter put this lobelia liniment on her arm and shoulder, and within 30 seconds, the pain was gone, and she could move again. She took it with her to work to be able to keep working. So that's how strong the lobelia, the eclectic physicians raved about lobelia for so many reasons.
Now, let's pause there for a moment, Dakota. You've just indicated to our audience that you do classes. I know they're local, so you get to do hands-on creating a liniment. Is this also something like a recipe that you have in your online teaching? On your online courses?
Well, okay, first of all, with the online courses, I'm taking a new tact with it now that we've been doing this show. I'm going to start doing more like webinar type classes, video classes with people.
Right.
And because I've put all of my information in the database, and we're going to use the database for classes for people who cannot come to class in Eureka. I do have a class on all day Friday, June 16th at in Eureka Springs on plant allies for women's cycles. So it's going to be all about women's medicine. You can find it. Well, come to Herbal Knowledge Keepers for the event. Just always come to Facebook right now. I'm redoing the school's website.
But I wanted to come back to the liniment recipe,
yeah,
for
so
instance.
let's just go
So
to...
that would be one of the videos?
Let's just go to liniment. It's all right here in the database.
You have it here.
I've made a point of putting everything that I can think of in here.
Okay.
So I just looked up liniment, and here are recipes on how to make liniments and other information. So,
okay.
Yeah. Really, everything that you need is here and to access quickly. So let's go back to where we were. We were on muscle pain. Now I'm back on antispasmodics.
Yeah, you've been talking extensively about the lobelia liniment.
Yeah, and that was, come on, don't be slow, computer. Well, we'll just go back up here. I was just taking you through. The green color is for anything that is related to a method of therapy or health condition, something like that. And let's see. Okay, inflammation modulating. So modulating. You've got inflammation, you need to bring it down. And you want to do it in a way that isn't harmful to your body. So here are different substances that will help to manage your inflammation. You do need some inflammation because it's there to protect a damaged tissue. If you've been injured or sick, it's bringing in new blood, it's taking out waste, it's bringing in your immune cells, your neutrophils. You need it, but you don't want it to go on too long or just become exaggerated. You want to keep it under control. So that's how it works with these modulating herbs. And so you can see there's a separate omega-3 section here. Those turn out to be really important. Omega-3 fatty acids for pain and inflammation both. So through the diet also is how we deal with a lot of this. It doesn't really work to be on a terrible diet and then just take an herb for pain or a drug for pain. So all of the information about what you can do in terms of your developing a more healthy diet is all in here too. Look, coconut water helps. So drinking coconut water is a beverage of choice along with your herb teas. That can be useful. Look at some of the things it does. All right, so I want to go back. I'm going to lift the information panel up just for fun. We've got some good information there. All right. Oh, young coconut water helps to improve depression by modulating neurotransmitters. So if you've got one of those people who is catastrophizing about their pain, you might give them coconut water. Just a thought. We've got a whole section on lifting the spirit. I'm just going to show you that too.
Oh yeah,
we
just under lifting spirit.
Yeah, because this whole business about being in a good mental frame of mind is critical for overcoming pain and healing. You want to always include this. So, for example, strengthening the nerve, getting rid of depression. You've got these plants. There are different ways to lift the spirit. Rose essential oil. Depression, restoring the heart and nerve, getting rid. Okay, so if you've got a heart problem and you're in pain, you might choose from these. And of course, you know, you'll have tons of information on it. Let's just click on frankincense. You'll discover with frankincense, it's not just the essential oil, but taking a good internal frankincense boswellia supplement, which is in here, will help. Okay, so it's anti-inflammatory, right? But it lifts the spirit. So include the lifting the spirit as always when somebody is in a lot of pain. Here, up here, looking at the top, you see some of the things that it does. Frankincense, this is one type of frankincense. There's different species of the plant. That's a tree resin. Here's the essential oil. This boswellia curcumin combo is really interesting. Combining these things together can really be beneficial. So this is a little video you can watch on how combining these two improves the health of your joints. And so that's going to help relieve joint pain.
And that's a good reminder. I think that's the first video we referenced today, is to remind folks that this database is filled with links and videos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see. Let me go back. Oh, I lost my breadcrumb trail. Neck pain, joint pain. And now we're back to pain. Now you can do also some of your own diagnoses, self-diagnoses. There, you can learn about, for example, let's see. Well, I'm just going to go to post-herpetic neuralgia, because that is something that I know some people have. My computer is being slow. Sorry, guys. This is something that is related to shingles. And I know some people who are dealing with this. They've got some pain, and this is a real bad one. If any of you have ever had this or know of anyone who've had this, this herpes zoster can damage the nerves and bring on a very, very serious pain where people don't even want to wear clothes. Anything touching their skin is unbearable. So here, try reishi mushroom, ascorbic acid, vitamin C, high doses of vitamin C, and it's been used. Some hospitals will even do an IV administration of vitamin C for this. And here we are with the capsaicin again. If you recall, when I was talking about the nociceptors, and that's from chili peppers, it deadens those nerves. Excuse me. So capsaicin is the active principle, or one of them, in chili peppers. It doesn't have to be cayenne. Any hot chili pepper will do, really. But always have some cayenne on hand for multiple reasons. It's analgesic, helps. Well, I don't want to get too far off field here. All right. And we're going to go back to pain again. I'm just kind of glancing through this to see what I want to cover before we run out of time. Okay. All right, we were in the analgesic, anodyne. You've had a pretty good look at this. Well,
let's see. We were talking plants, and you know what's always interesting to me is identifying pharmaceuticals back to the root plant that they did. Like I love that knowledge about aspirin. Original aspirin was willow bark
and meadowsweet.
Okay, and meadowsweet. So I always love that information. Like, like are any of the like, okay, puppies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The
Um,
drugs.
but are there any, like Tylenol, does it have any original medicine in it, or is it
I
all
don't think
synthetic?
so. That one that seems to be all synthetic. I just pulled up white willow because I know a lot of folks are familiar that white willow is kind of like the aspirin substitute. And so there's some information here about what it does. Dosages, contraindications. It's really quite safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I need to find some more studies to put in there. There are some cautions for it. Let's pull that up. Always look at the cautions. And let's pull this up and see. Okay, so, well, there's just some thinking that because it is similar to aspirin, you don't want to mix it with heparin or any of the blood thinning drugs. If you're allergic to aspirin, be careful with it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't use it with aspirin for sure. All right, so let's go back up here and see what white willow is for. So we see white willow is a COX-2 inhibitor. It's interesting to see how some of these plants work. Now, it's a COX-2 inhibitor, and if you'll recall, when we were talking about COX-2 inhibition and the drugs they made, inhibiting COX-2, if you recall,
Right.
makes you more vulnerable to a heart attack.
Right.
So does that mean it's dangerous to take rose hips or white willow or maitake? That's another one.
Mm-hmm.
The omega-3 curcumin? Apparently not, because first of all, that's not all they're doing in the body. You're taking these whole plants and those active substances are in a matrix that's quite intelligent. There's a synergy where these plants have a long association with the human body,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. And there's actually a conversation that goes on with all parts of this plant and the cells. And so while it is a COX-2 inhibitor, it's not to the extent of these drugs that are trying to shut it down altogether. So I've had experience with rose hips as being excellent for back pain, rose hip powder. What are some experiences you've had with white willow? You've been using it, right?
I've been using it forever. I mean, the thing that, like any kind of ache in the body or headache, but also willow bark, it's a tincture form that I make it in. Willow bark's also really good for our belly if you have a little belly ache.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also good for emotions. If you're feeling a little, upset about something, willow bark's been real soothing in that
Okay.
way.
Okay.
So it's probably one of my most popular tinctures over the years that I've administered to others alongside valerian. Those are the
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
valerian being more of a sedative,
Mm-hmm.
nervine, right? It's a nerve killer, where willow bark has been more just like an aspirin,
Yeah. Well, it is also a COX-1 inhibitor, so it inhibits both COX-1 and COX-2.
Mm-hmm.
It has glycosides in it. That's one of the things that makes it important. And so you could learn about the glycosides. But you see here, these are some of the main things that it's known for, that it's used to treat. Okay, headache. Let's say
Yeah.
you came into the database because you have a headache.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, we don't want you to be just thinking of one drug for one condition, one herb for one condition. We want you to really be thinking this through as to what's going on with that headache, what's causing it, what kind of headache is it.
Mm-hmm.
And now for headaches in general, these are different herbs that are very, very helpful. Lavender, meadowsweet, sweet clover, pasque flower. Learn how to take them. Read the information. What's the dose? how often, are there any contraindications? Um, but then also figure out what kind of headache you have. Um, they're not all the same. And some herbs work better with certain headaches than others.
Oh, like I mentioned valerian, the valerian tincture. A lot of people who have said they have migraines
Okay.
have often had success from that.
Okay. And
Um,
go ahead.
well, we're getting near closing, and I want you to have the opportunity to talk about that event
Okay.
that you have coming.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a reminder for people to come to the Herbal Knowledge Keepers Facebook.
Okay. All right, but I do want to say one more thing about migraines. Why it's worth learning about this, because we understand now that migraines, if it's on the side of the head, is usually actually a liver and gallbladder issue, because the gallbladder channel in meridian in Chinese medicine is known to run along the side of the head. So you might be treating a migraine when you should be treating your gallbladder.
Wow, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. So, folks, please, I'm going to go back I'm going to go back, stop share. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Please do join us on Facebook. Definitely sign up for the herbal database. The first month is only $5, so you can discover if it's helpful to you. Um, If you want to continue, it's only $15 a month. And as I said, we will be having classes based on the database online for people who can't come to Eureka Springs. Now, June 16th, starting 9:30 in the morning to 5:30, we're going to have a full day on women's medicine, and it's going to be great. It's always a lot of fun. Lunch is included. You'll have a lot of written materials to study afterwards. So I guess that's about it. And thank you very much. I'm sorry you had trouble getting on to the live show, but we will have this up as an archive for anyone who's missed it.
That's right. And all the archives will be at consciousconsumernetwork.tv. And we want to thank them.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. The folks at Conscious Consumer Network are fabulous to work with. Mm-hmm. So heartfelt thanks there too.
Yeah, please, take the time to check out the website and explore the other programs that they are producing. And then also want to acknowledge again that fullbloomproductions.org. We are a nonprofit, 501c3, and you can go to the website, and Full Bloom is who brings you the Herbal Knowledge Keepers with Dakota and myself. Also brings you Get Lit with my other co-host, Rebecca Hahn. And we are looking to bring you two other wonderful hosts and facilitators, and just keep an eye open for that announcement. That'll either be on any of our Facebook pages, Get Lit, Herbal Knowledge Keepers, or my personal one, Shama Dear Woman. So we'll keep you informed about that. And again, a reminder, in your communications, you can ask specifically if there's a topic that you want to have addressed, and then you'll see from the Facebook group at Herbal Knowledge Keepers, Dakota is just giving out the love wisdom left and right. You can ask questions right there and you can see. And of course, she's always going to redirect you back to the Herbal database. We really encourage you to subscribe, get familiar, and get this database out. It's a valuable tool, and especially we want to get it into that medical research that all of us are doing. Let's all become our own advocate and empower ourselves in the ability to make really good choices and have really intelligent conversations with each other.
And get the doctors on it too, because more and more of them are recognizing that they need to know how to use especially for pain, something besides these NSAIDs and opioids. But they don't know anything about it. So they need this. You can direct them to it, and it'll help them enormously. Especially because it's so evidence-based. And that's what they need.
Right on. Right on. Okay. So I think we're ready to wrap it up. We love you. Have beautiful moments and stay in touch with us. Thank you so much.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.